Hey y'all, it's your girl Dee, and I'm back with another video. As promised, I'm trying to do 24 days of December. I'm giving you good content every day of December. And for today, I didn't just want to talk about a book that would be the best or one of the top gifts for Christmas. I wanted to bring the author of the book on to talk to you about the book and to tell you why this would be a good Christmas gift. And before I get into the video, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Click the bell so you're notified when we drop a new video. Some of you may remember this author, Steve Anderson, who came on a couple months back and he was telling us about his book. And now the book is out, and I have a copy, and it's called Driven to Succeed. And we're going to get into it because a couple days ago I did a video talking about being too ambitious and how some people can see ambition as negative or as positive, and they have a negative tone or a positive tone to it when they tell you that you're too ambitious. So, without further ado, this is Steve Anderson talking to us about Driven to Succeed. Welcome, Steve.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
Not bad. I'm doing fantastic, in fact. And thanks for having me again on your program. So I'm really excited about this conversation.
It's my pleasure, and I'm excited too. So, can you tell us a little bit about the book?
Yeah, sure. It was, first of all, I'm going to say it was a journey, that's for sure, especially when it's difficult writing a book in general, but certainly an autobiography where you're really chronicling your own story, the good, the bad, and the in between, right? And so that was a challenge to determine how authentic I was going to be in revealing myself. And so day by day, it was a tug of war between what I thought I should say and the voice saying, "Hey, Steve, I don't know if you should go there because, people may look at you funny." But I'm glad that I struck the right balance, to be honest with you, because the feedback that I've received since the book launched back in October has just been really overwhelming. And people appreciated sincerely the vulnerability because they were able to see themselves in certain parts of the book. And so from that point, it's been truly a blessing.
That's amazing. And for me, it was just good to see a Black person tell their story authentically and entirely. A Black man at that, right? Because oftentimes we find within society, our Black men do go through things and they don't necessarily share it, or they feel as though, okay, I might be the only one. But I've heard like different summaries of your book, and that's why I have it so I can read it for myself. But I'm anxious to really read the journey, because sometimes I feel as though everyone who gets to the top or gets to a successful point, they got there like that,
Mhm.
because not a lot of people tell you the journey and the ins and outs of what actually took place. And from my understanding, I'll be able to grasp all of that from the book, right?
And that's an excellent point that you made. That was one of the driving forces and why I was authentic sharing these things, these setbacks and these disappointments. I've done a number of speaking engagements prior to this book and certainly afterwards. And what I tell people is oftentimes, particularly our youth, we see things on social media, everything seems instant, right? There's not necessarily a sharing of the journey. There's just the outcome and the conclusion. And then people start to believe that something should happen for them just like that, instantaneously. And so what I purposely did in the book was to show that, what you see today didn't just happen overnight. There was a journey, there was a process, there was ups, there were downs. But as I say to particularly our young people, but to anybody, you have to stay the course, you have to be patient, and ultimately you'll cross the finish line.
Yeah, and I guess that's what the title's all about, driven to succeed. If you don't have the drive, will you actually succeed?
That's it. That's it.
So why that title? I feel like you could have chosen any other topic. You could have said Steve Anderson's journey. You could have said I'm now successful. Why driven to succeed?
Right. The I am successful would have just maybe resonated with a couple of people. Hey, I'm the lawyer with the TTC. Hey, I'm the deputy mayor. Look at me. Yeah. I'm balling out of control. That wouldn't have reached the audience that I was intending to reach, particularly our young people who may feel that things are not going their way. They're stuck in one gear or they're taking several steps forward, And then, the wind comes and sets them several steps backwards. And I wanted to show that honest journey to say that even if you find yourself, I often say, just because you find yourself in difficult circumstances doesn't mean you have to stay in them, right? And so when you talk about the reason for the title, The Driven to Succeed, because when I reflected on the journey, the one thing that was constant was the drive to be better than the circumstances that I was in. And so it became easy to me that this was the right title for the book.
Wow, that's actually really good. And when I think of the title, like you rightly said, it does touch and capture a lot of different avenues because you don't know where the book is actually going to go. Like, you're driven to succeed in what aspect? It could just be in overall life, in your career, in your family life. Like, there's so many different aspects of life that, yes, we should have that drive to be successful and to be somewhat of a monarch, I guess, quote unquote, so that people can look up to us. And like you rightly said, this is a book for young people. And that's part of the reason why I purchased it, because I felt like there's so much motivational stuff in here, as well as inspirational things. And I've been following you from when you came on the last time. And there's a part in the book where you mention that you took the LSATs multiple times, right? And I've even heard you say that. And I guess full disclosure, I actually took the LSAT and I failed. And once I failed, I said, okay, this is not for me. And that's how I took it. And maybe it's also because that really wasn't the path for me. But it was also kind of, I guess, comforting to know that someone who is successful in the field also didn't pass. You also failed the first time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel you on that. And here's what I would say, and I'm not saying that this is your situation, but for those who are listening that may think or may find themselves in a similar situation, to me, I kind of look at it like you're praying and you're asking God for a sign for something, and it doesn't happen. And you think, well, you know what? Maybe God didn't want me to have this. Is it that God didn't want you to have it, or He was testing your faith? That on the first side of resistance, you were kind of like, you know what? I prayed about it. He didn't hear me, so I'm just going to move on and do my own thing. And maybe God is wanting to see how badly do you want it, and are you going to lose faith in your ability to accomplish what you're setting out to accomplish? And so sometimes we have to take that failure and say, well, that doesn't mean that God's giving up on me, or maybe God doesn't want this for me. Maybe He just wants me to continue to rely on Him and try again. And as you said, I did it 3 times before eventually I got in. There were a number of people who were saying to me, hey, Steve, you know what? Especially after the second time, yo, bro, maybe it's time for you to consider something else. But I knew what I wanted, and hence the reason, the drive and driven to succeed. And thankfully, I didn't listen to those voices, and I continued on, and here I am now. And so if I had given up or had taken the noise in my ears, we wouldn't be talking about this element of the story.
Yeah. And speaking of those voices, I guess, how can you help us as young people? Because those voices do exist, and sometimes those voices aren't necessarily external, they're internal. There are own voices telling us that, you know what, this isn't for you. So what tips or tools or what advice can you give us on that?
Well, but those voices could be deafening, huh?
Yes, they can.
Internally, it's like you really have to be intentional to block that out. And I'll tell you that even just before I answer that question, even just writing this book, you would think that after achieving a level of success and now writing this book, I'd be really confident in whatever voice that came my way. I'd be like, yo, just get out of here. I know what I'm doing because I'm confident I've accomplished enough. Yeah. But even writing the book, there was the voices kept reoccurring. Steve, you're not Barack Obama. No one's going to care about your story. You're wasting your time. And I had to beat back those voices just to be able to finish the book. Right. And so just because you've reached a certain stage in your life, it doesn't mean that those doubting voices internally or externally doesn't creep in. You know what I mean? And so I think there's a constant tug of war that one goes through, especially when you're coming out of your comfort zone. And that's the key. When you're in your comfort zone, you tend not to hear the voices. It's when you decide to come out of your comfort zone and pursue something or pursue greatness, to really challenge yourself. That's when you start to hear the voices. Hey, what are you doing? Get back into your box. That's where you belong. So to answer your question, when they hear the voices, what should we do? We should stick to our vision. Maestro sang a song, stick to your vision. You got to stick to your vision. You got to know why you're doing what you're doing and say that, you know what, despite these voices internally, externally, I'm going to stay the course because I believe in what I'm trying to accomplish. And having that inner purpose and will, and certainly having people who are around you that also believe in what you're trying to do will help you to get past the noise, if I may put it that way.
Yeah, that's definitely important. Surrounding yourself with people who support you, because those who do not support you will bring you down. And
Oh yeah.
I mean, had you had listened to any of those people, we would not have this book. I don't know what other career field you would have probably gone into had you had listened to them, but definitely you wouldn't have been so inspirational to many of us young people today. My next question, I guess, since you inspired us so much through this book and you're still inspiring us, who inspired you to write this book? And who, I guess, essentially is this book for?
At first I started and thought that this book was for young folks, but with the feedback that I've gotten across the board, it's for everybody, because who doesn't need a bit of hope and inspiration, especially in challenging times, right? Who doesn't experience setbacks and disappointments, or have come to a point in their life where there's a fork in the road, or they're doubting whether they should go left or right, especially in a pandemic. And so to me, the book is for everyone. Yes, it is. I thought it was mainly for use, and I still believe that. But it's for everyone. I believe, to sort of delve into and again see themselves in part of the story. So I don't remember what you said before, but if I'm missing a part of your question.
Who inspired you to write?
Oh yes, sorry about that. Who inspired me? So wanting to make a difference. I've always done speaking engagements in schools, working with youth. This was just one way of documenting that experience and being able to reach a larger audience that myself personally wouldn't be able to go in many instances. Secondly, it was for my two children, Asia and Devante, to show them that anything that they want to do, whether they want to be a lawyer, they want to be a politician, they want to be an author, nothing is off limits. Thirdly, it's for the family, because it's about preserving a legacy. Oftentimes when you hear people passing down things to the younger generation, it is jewelry, it's some form of heirloom. This book is my heirloom to my own children and my family. So even when I'm gone, that legacy will be preserved. You said from the very beginning about a Black man telling his own story and preserving that story. And that's, again, part of the reason why I wanted to do it. But the main inspiration, saying all of that, was my mother, and wanting to make sure that her legacy was also preserved. I speak about her greatly in the book and her influence that she had and still has today. And it was a way of honoring her as well. So she was certainly overall the greatest influence.
That's amazing. And you mentioned preserving your story. And I like that, because you're able to tell your story your way, and it's from you. It's not a hearsay. It's not, and I heard that he did this and this and this. It's you actually giving us a little piece of yourself by being so emotional and just letting it all out on the paper. And I wonder, were there parts of the book, now that you look back at it and you're like, did I really need to put that in there? Or should I not have added that? Or anything like that when you look back? Or are there any things where you say, you know what, I think I might have to do a book 2 because I did not add XYZ?
Those are two fantastic questions. And first of all, I've done a number of interviews and nobody's asked me those two questions. So kudos to you. That's really made me think. It was a constant struggle about whether the things that I put in there, because as you've talked about, it is an emotional journey. One in particular was the, being placed in ESL when I was in grade 7, and that experience. Sharing the separation of my parents and how that led me into a tailspin, hanging with the wrong crowd. And, people today, especially when you've reached a certain level in your life, however you define success, the last thing you want to do is reveal certain things that somebody may raise their eyebrow and say, wow, I didn't know that you went to that. Yeah. Man, I feel sorry for you. Or really, you were hanging with wrong people? And we know how sometimes people become judgmental. And so that was a constant battle in determining what I should put in there or not. So those two stories about the ESL and certainly the separation were ones where I questioned, should I actually put that in there? But I'm glad that I did, because even just those two pieces, the amount of people who've come to me and said on either of those pieces that they found themselves in a similar situation. One gentleman at a library in Orangeville had come to me and revealed, when I shared those pieces, and shared a similar story. And he had said to me that he hadn't even shared this with his wife, and he was telling me for the first time. And so being vulnerable almost gives permission to others to say, you know what, somebody else is going through this. Now I could get this off my chest, so to speak. And so things to put in that I think that I may have missed that would lead to a book number 2. Geez, I don't know. I would say, I guess there's different aspects of the story I could certainly develop more. I could certainly have developed more the church influence, even though I do talk about that in the book. But maybe that's a book number 2 for sure. And certainly I could have talked about a lot more, and maybe about the other people who are doing exceptional work in communities like Jane and Finch that don't really get the recognition. And so those are certain things I wish I could expand upon. But at the end of the day, there's only so many pages that you could get into a book. And so if I have to do a book number 2, then maybe that's something I should consider.
Definitely. I'm here for a book number 2. I honestly just love the fact that there were different parts of the book, like you rightly mentioned, that people were able to connect with. And for me, it was the LSATs, right? Specifically, just knowing that, okay, so because I'm telling this on a big, big platform, but when I failed, I felt like a failure, right? So it actually hit hard, because I was successful in school. I did my undergrad and I was good. So to do this after studying and failing, I'm like, what is wrong with me? And I find that sometimes we beat ourselves up so much. So I want to know, the first time when you failed, the second time when you failed, or even other struggles in the book, did you beat yourself up? Did you find yourself like, you know what, I must be done, so or I just don't know why I can't grasp XYZ, or I'm going through this, when, especially, I know this is like, it's a long question, but especially when you see other people and you're like, how is it that they're passing and I can't pass? You know, like
yeah, that's big. That's big. And so that did happen, and I talk about that in the book as well. And the particular instance was when I didn't get into, so I wrote my LSAT exam, but I didn't get into a Canadian school. I got into an American school in Detroit, in fact. And the tuition was $20,000 US. I was only getting like nickels and dimes from the Canadian government. I think I got like 5,000. And so when I got to campus, it was only by the grace of God I was able to get a job on campus that allowed me to pay my tuition. But then when the year ended, I didn't have any more money to go the next year to pay $20,000 US. And so here I was, just in school a few months ago, and now I had to take the year off. And believe this or not, I was working at a collection agency at Leslie and Shepherd. And here I was, my job the entire summer was to call students on their defaulted student loans. Can you imagine? And so I'm sitting there at my desk making these calls. I would hang up the phone. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, just a few months ago, I'm in law school in Detroit. And then 2 and 2, I'm at a collection agency calling students about their student loans. And it was at that moment I thought to myself, man, like, all the people who started law school at the time that I did, they're progressing, fulfilling their dreams. And here I am stuck in Toronto working for a collection agency. And so, yes, I thought life was passing me by. But what I've come to learn is you got to stay in your lane and be patient. And here's a quick example of this. When I saved enough money, I went online to register for classes, and I saw something called the letter of permission, and it allowed me to study at a Canadian institution or any institution for 1 year. And so I called my best friend, Ian, who was at the University of Manitoba, who also grew up in Jane and Finch. He was at Manitoba Law School. And I said, Ian, why don't we both apply for this and study 1 year at a Canadian school together, best friends, sort of fulfilling our childhood dream. So we both applied to the University of Ottawa, and we get in. And it was at the University of Ottawa where I decided that, you know what, I like it here. So here's the thing. Once I got in, the obligation was I had to go back to Detroit. That was my contractual obligation, no questions asked. So I get into Ottawa, and Ian and I are just loving it. I'm paying, at the time, it was 5,000 or 6,000 Canadian. And like I said, Detroit was 20,000 US.
Wait,
Then I said
the semester.
For the year. At the
Wow.
time when I went to law school, it was 6,000 for the year. So this is going way back, way back. And so I said to myself, man, I want to stay here. I love it here.
Mhm.
I'm closer to home. I'm paying Canadian dollars, much less dollars.
Yep.
I'm with my best friend, and I want to graduate from the University of Ottawa. So I made an appointment with the dean. And again, stay with me on the theme of being patient.
Yeah.
So I make an appointment with the dean, and I said, listen, I want to stay at the law school. He's like, Steve, after he rocks back in his chair, he listens to what I have to say. Steve, this has never been done before here. You have to go back to Detroit and fulfill your contractual obligation. So I say I left disappointed, but still determined.
Mhm.
I continued to work hard on campus, get good grades, and I got a bunch of professors, one in particular, Joanne St. Louis, constitutional professor, who really advocated for me. She then went to the dean at the end of the year and said, Steve Anderson has to stay in our school. By the end of the year, I got an email from the dean saying, congratulations, Steve, you've been accepted to the University of Ottawa. And I never had to go back to Detroit. And that's how I graduated from the University of Ottawa. Why am I telling you this? Then I graduate, I get a job at the TTC. When I got an articling position, which is what you do when you graduate law school, you work for 12 months at the time, you write your bar exam, and then at the end, they could hire you back full time. When I started the articling position at the TTC, they told me, Steve, we hadn't hired a student back in years, and you're not likely to be hired back, but you'll get some good experience that will allow you to get a job somewhere else. I said, listen, man, I'm cool. I'm just happy I got a job to article. I'll figure that out on my own. Lo and behold, before the year finished, one of the gentlemen, the senior lawyers that interviewed me, he left the job. And in the book, I describe it as, it was like God had parted the Red Sea, allowing his people to cross. He left. Then I interviewed for the job and got the job. And so getting back to the point of being patient, even though it appears that life is passing you by, everybody's progressing. If I had gotten to the TTC 1 year earlier, he would still be in the job and I wouldn't be working at the TTC. And I've been at the TTC now for 17 years and counting. Many of these same students who were graduating and getting ahead of me have switched from job to job to job. And I've been in one job for almost 18 years. And so what I say to young people is that even when it appears that you're a setback and life is passing you by and other people are progressing, just stay in your lane. You will get to where you need to get to in God's time.
Wow, that was a good story. And that, no, because, people always say, I'm sure maybe in your time they were saying, no, don't take the year off. Maybe we can or whatever, because we hear that so much as young people from our parents, and, they are our best cheerleaders and we appreciate it. But sometimes I feel as though, I don't know if you endured this as well. Sometimes I feel like they're not understanding it because they're not going through it, right? So now that you've told your story, that year off was so beneficial for you, right? It helped you along your way. But if some of us were to say, I feel like I couldn't have dared said I wanted to take a year off. But, because of the household that I was in, and we needed to natural progression. You finish high school, you go to university, finish university, you get a job. There's no break. When you get the job, then you ask for vacation time, and then there you can get your little break, but you have to go through the natural progression. Did you have to go through those same progressions, like where it was like consistent? Because I know you had Jamaican parents. I have Jamaican parents, like to the bone. I grew up there. I left there when I was 12. So they were strict with the whole driven to succeed, and this is what we're going to do. This is the game plan. Now you run it.
Yeah, and I think it's important that I say everybody's situation is different. It's not like I told my mom and my family at the time that, hey, listen, I just want to take a year off and find myself, right? Where they're like, what are you doing, right? Or I want to go travel the world and then I'll come back and I'll go to school. Like, I had to take the year off. I didn't have a choice financially. I just didn't have enough money to go back. And so if I did, I guess I would have been progressing step by step until getting that career job and taking those vacation days, as you say. And this is what even though you have certain plans, sometimes things in life get in the way, and things that you didn't expect to happen or certainly didn't want to happen, they happen. And it's just about making adjustments. And as I say in the book, and as I say in many of these talks, is we all experience challenges and obstacles. It's how we decide to respond to them that's going to determine our future and our legacy. And that's really the key. This wasn't something that I asked for, I wanted. I would have preferred to go through the progression, but that's not how it was meant for me. And there was a lot of lessons learned in that setback that allowed me to be a stronger person moving forward.
Yeah. And that makes me think of the fight or flight, and I feel like throughout your book, we see the fight. You were so determined to get to your definition of success and your level of success that you pushed through. So even though all of the hurdles were coming up and all the obstacles were in your way, you were driven. Like, so you were in your car. This is my little analogy. This is how I see it in my head. You're in your car because, driven, and these things are in your way and a tree may fall down and you're just like, I'm going to go around it. Or something else happens, or maybe it's a bigger vehicle and you're able to drive over it, so that you're still safe and you're still pushing through. The red light comes and it's like, okay, fine, I understand. I must pause and wait a bit, but you're still going. And that's why I love the book, because I feel like in my life, sometimes I've actually heard that I'm too ambitious. And I've heard it in a negative way, because I want my definition of success. I want to be where I want to be. And people have said that I'm too ambitious. Have people told you that you were too ambitious? And if so, with the negative tone, and if so, how did you combat that? Like, how did you proceed?
Yeah, I just, to be honest with you, I just dismiss those kinds of comments. There's a friend of mine, my friend Andrew, one of my good friends, Andrew. He's a motivational speaker, also grew up in Jane Finch. We actually lived in the same building, Jane Eddystone. And he recently made the comment to me, Steve, when you are trying to soar like an eagle, you have no time to spend with pigeons. Pigeons are constantly on the ground looking for crumbs, looking for scraps, fighting amongst themselves, to get that little crumb on there. And so if you're around people who have that pigeon mentality, when you're trying to soar like an eagle, they're going to say, why are you flying so high? You should be down here with us fighting for the crumbs. You need to surround yourself with other eagles that are flying high, that are going to help elevate you, right? It's like the geese. The geese fly in formation. They do that because it helps to keep them elevated for a long period of time, for that long journey of a flight that they're going to travel from here to maybe flying south. And so it helps them to conserve energy. There's power in numbers. The geese that are trying to fly south are not on the ground arguing with pigeons.
True.
And so we need to distance ourselves from people who have a pigeon mindset and surround ourselves with people who are like eagles that are trying to soar as much as we're trying to soar ourselves.
And I think that is a very important point. And my last question for you is, outside of me telling everybody why this is a great book and how motivational and inspirational it is, and I'm sure some of you may even find it thought-provoking, why should people buy this book for a Christmas present? For any reason, why should they buy your book?
I see two stockings behind you, so people should put that as a stocking stuffer. Why I hope that they do. Again, as I said, many people, especially in challenging times, find themselves in a rut or in difficult circumstances, whether you're young, you're old, and in between. And as I said before, we all could benefit from a little hope and inspiration. I was recently tagged on social media by the Ontario Minister of Education, Stephen Lecce. And my repost of that picture, he had the book in his hand and he was holding it with another MP at the time, Pragmeet Sarkaria. And when I reposted that, I said, at any level, we could benefit from hope and inspiration. We all could benefit from hope and inspiration. There are times in all of our lives, no matter where we are and whatever level that we arise to, there's sometimes doubt, uncertainty, and challenges. And this is just a reminder that if you encounter them, it doesn't mean that that your journey is over or that success is going to elude you. If you stay patient, success is around the corner. So if you know a young person, or it's you yourself, or there's a family member or a coworker that you believe that could benefit from that extra boost. We're not talking about a booster shot. We're talking about a boost of hope and inspiration. Yes. If you think that somebody could benefit from that boost, then I invite you to visit my website at www.driventossucceed.ca. That's again www. Yeah, driventossucceed.ca, or just go directly to Amazon. You can go directly to Amazon and just type in "Driven to Succeed" Steve Anderson, and you can purchase it. And if you have Prime, you could probably get it by Tuesday.
You get it the next day.
There you go.
That's how I got it. I got it the next day. So that's amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today. Oh, last question. Is this an audio? Do you have an audiobook as well?
Oh man, let me tell you something. So it's on Kindle and it's a paperback. And I thought, should I do the audio? I don't know. Let me tell you, since I released it, I can't tell you how many people have asked me for the audio version. So I am happy. I am happy to tell you that as of January, I'm going into the studio to work on the audio version. And so I hope that it will be released before February, Black History Month. But I will let you know, and I'll certainly put on social media that it is available, because a number of people have asked me. And what I've come to learn is that people consume information in different ways. And so I'm going to make sure that that's available. So stay tuned for the audio version in the new year.
Definitely. That's amazing. Yes, because there are auditory learners and people may want to listen to it in the car, on their commute. Podcasts and all that stuff have become really big. So yeah, it'd be really good. So I'm excited that you are doing an audiobook, and I will be gifting this. I'm actually gifting this. I actually thought about gifting it to a couple people this year because they do need motivation. Some of them are stuck in some jobs and some situations where they're not feeling the success. They're feeling like they're driving to no end. So we're going to get them to drive to succeed. So they'll be driven to succeed.
There we go. There we go.
Thank you so much for joining us. And for all of you who are watching, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Click the bell so you're notified when we drop a new video. And if you need the books, head over to Amazon, and the website will be on the bottom of the screen. Till next time, bye.